Trailblazers currently have 13 wins. They're taking on the Brooklyn Nets tonight. And everybody's like, they're winning too many games. And we talked a little bit already about where they're at, where they're in the standings, and kind of how this can all shake out, right? Well, the thing about this is, and I've said this multiple times, come All-Star break, things will be different. And they're like, well, you can't do this and you can't do that. Yes, you can. You know how I know you can? Because in 21-22, they went 2-21 post All-Star break.
That seems bad.
The worst record in the NBA. In 22-23, they went 5-19, the second worst record in the NBA. Last year, post All-Star break, they went 6-22, the worst record in the NBA. If you combine it all, that is 13-62. That is 75 games. It's a 17% winning percentage. That is on pace to win 14 games over an 82 game season.
If you just take their tanking at the end of the season.
Yes. And so I've said people, well, what pace are they on right now? The pace that they're on right now doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it's going to change in 3 weeks.
I think Blazer fans especially have been conditioned to think in the terms of when they were competitive. In all of that pacing and the projecting of how many wins they would have, it was always that furious finish that the Blazers would have to do to either get to the playoffs or in order to get to a point where seeding mattered, right? And they got more favorable seeding. That was what they would always do. And so there is this conditioning that, you always peel off a few more wins than you think. Well, I think what we're looking at now is this team is losing far more games than they should based on the projections at a midway point of the season. And
sure.
That's kind of how we need to reframe and refocus what this team is right now. Because it's not good.
I've seen some people say, well, they're going to sit guys. And I'm like, yeah, it's exactly what's going to happen. Have you not watched the past 3 years?
Well, yeah. But who are they going to sit is the question.
I mean, anybody who's still here who's impacting winning.
And that is going to be the interesting part.
With the exception of the young guys.
We talked about this in was it last week
mm-hmm.
when we talked about like the trade market does not seem like it is going the way that people were hoping it would for a lot of teams, not just Portland.
You can basically say every team in the league, anything over basically $18 million.
And that is, that's a
transactions will happen, but if you're talking about with the Trailblazers, you're probably looking at guys like Jabari Walker and Dwap Reith. You're not looking at guys who are making real money.
We're going to have to see a lot more guys taking seats then if that's the case.
And here's the thing. You've already seen Jeremy Grant do it in the past.
Yeah.
He hasn't played a game post-March or in March in the past 3 years.
What's going on with his face?
He got smacked in the jaw really hard,
okay.
And he did not get put in concussion protocol, but it jacked up his jaw and his neck. Pretty bad. I know everybody's like, oh, they're sitting him for trades. And it's like, guys, you don't sit the guy who underperformed from 2 this year and would kind of you want him to go out there and play for a couple of games and be like, it was just a bad start in the middle of trade season. That's not how that works, like at all, in any way, shape, matter, or form. And it's the same thing has happened with Matisse. And I'm like, Matisse basically turned his ankle upside down. Matisse flat out told me that the doctors told him basically it almost would have been better had he broken his ankle as opposed to this level of sprain that he had.
Yikes. And that usually happens, though, if you have a really bad sprain.
Yes.
Yeah,
it was a grade 2 sprain. It was not upper ankle. It was, upper ankle. It was just like mid ankle, but it was very bad. It was a grade 2, which means there are partial tears.
Yeah, all sprains are tears.
And then, the grade 2 is, the closest you get because grade 3 is a full tear and or rupture.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he was coming back off of procedure he had done on his knee. He had some PRP done to his knee. And if you ever had PRP done, it can make you swell up like a balloon. I've had it done on my knees 4 different times. And it's not a fun process. Like it can help a ton, but it also, you have some aggravation and swelling. And when he came back from that, it just took a little while. And when I think he was 2 days away from returning when he rolled his ankle, and he rolled the living crap out of it. And talking to him before they went on this last road trip, he was like, yeah, no, I've, in the way Matisse can do something, he was like very thoughtful. He's like, throughout this whole process, I've really learned to understand like all of the inner workings and like how an ankle actually works. Like I've sat down and talked to the doctors, and of course I just kind of like laugh, like of course you would, Tease.
Yeah,
Like that's
that
what
makes
you take out of
sense.
this. But then he also drops the. They also told me it probably would have been better had I broken it, and I was like, yeesh.
Not good.
It was gnarly. Like it was a really bad sprain. So for everybody's like, every time somebody hits the injury report, oh, it's trade. No, it's not. Like if we're like 3 days away from the trade deadline, tighten the tinfoil. 3 weeks? No, that's not when it happens.
I think we'd all love to see something happen, though.
Yeah, I would too. And when I say this stuff, it's not because I don't want to see things happen or, I'm poo-pooing transactions like, oh, I can't do that. If there's just no traction in the NBA around deals right now of any significance.
Yeah.
So,
But I said it before, I'll say it again. I think that we will all look at it as a failure if other teams are able to get stuff done, but the Blazers aren't, right?
yeah.
I mean that's where it lands with this. If nobody can make moves, and that's just the way that the CBA is that restrictive, then look, you can only play the hand you're dealt, right? But if other teams are finding ways to get deals done, that is where you go. "Oh, that's a failure."
That's
because
where I had
your
a GM say when they were talking about trades, like if trade does happen, there's only so many buyers out there. If you have a piece that you could potentially be moved, you have to find a way to win that transaction. And not like win the outcome, but have it be that your guy is the one that's moved as opposed to everyone else's. And that's and like you said, if that happens, then then you can start having that discussion about whatever teams don't get something done versus the team that did.
Because at that point, we sit there and we hear often about the movable assets that they have, the contracts being structured in a way that they could be moved, and guys that would be attractive on the trade market. And if they're not attractive enough for anybody who wants them, then we overplayed our hand here in Portland, right? And that's where we would be at that point. But as of right now, look, we're all just hoping, waiting, wishing that something happens at or near the trade deadline.
It's an interesting place to end up, that's for sure. All right,
but don't panic. We can lose enough games here at the end of this year.
Yeah, they've showed that they're more than capable of doing that.